When I began to think about today's service, I wanted to cry. The shared topic for February among worship, small groups, and religious exploration is beloved community. And it is now 2 weeks short of 1 year since this beloved community is joined together in person. And I miss you. And I know you miss one another. We have soldiered on. We have been strong. We've been taking care of one another. But behind all of this is the reality that we are in diaspora. It's okay to feel sad, to give in to our sorrow and shed an occasional tear. It's probably even healthy to do so. But I don't want today's worship to be a memorial service for the live community. Let's agree to make it a celebration of beloved community, a promise that as soon as it's possible, we will celebrate it in person. In the meantime, let's zoom on. Good morning, beloveds. Good morning and welcome to First Jefferson Unitarian Universalist Church in Fort Worth, Texas, where we extend the blessings of community to both friends and strangers, far and near, learning and seeking, confused and filled with wonder. Welcome to this beloved community. I'm Annie Foerster. Let us begin our worship with music from our pianist, Misha Beresnev. The call to worship was written this morning by Kimberly Ann Tomzak Carlson, called A Place of Belonging and Caring. She wrote, "It's not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to the possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. So welcome home. Welcome to worship. Please join us in singing hymn number 1008 in the Teal hymnal, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. And our hymn leader this morning is President Brian Skinner, President of the Board of Trustees, that is. Brian.
Love makes a bridge from heart to heart and hand to hand. Love finds a way when laws are blind and freedom banned. Love breaks the walls of language, gender, class, and age. Love gives us wings to slip the bars of every cage. Love lifts the hope that force and fear have beaten down. Love breaks the chains and gives us strength to stand our ground. Love rings the bells of wanted birth and wedding day. Love guides the hands that promise more than words can say. Love makes a bridge that winds may shake yet not destroy. Love carries faith through life and death to endless joy.
My apologies, I announced the wrong hymn, but fortunately the people here know what they're doing and they just ignored me. Thank you, Brian and Misha. Please join me in lighting our chalice this morning and saying the words that are on your screen. We light our chalice this morning with the words of the Reverend Victoria Safford, which are printed on the screen. So please say them with me. Beloved community is an attitude, an orientation of the heart. It's a disciplined understanding of your own relationship to other people, to everyone else on the planet, to every living thing. What a worthy thought in which to light our chalice this morning. This is our 6th week of celebrating Chalaka, a Unitarian Universalist spiritual examination of our 7 principles, plus the recommended 8th principle we are considering adding to the rest. Today, David Bindi, who is our parliamentarian during congregational meetings, looks at how and why we affirm and promote the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in our society at large. David?
Happy Chalaka. As we celebrate our 7 principles, the one that I've chosen this morning is the 5th principle. My name is David Bindi, and in the church I help out with the plants, do a little singing with the choir, and as Annie said, I've served as parliamentarian for the last couple of years at our congregational meeting. The 5th principle, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. I embrace this principle in 3 different parts. The first part being the democratic process in our congregation. I see this as being involved in our church, whether you're involved in groups, in committees, or as just friends and companions on our journey towards finding our own sacred place. And as we're involved with these groups, we democratically decide on goals and objectives, and we work to bring those to fruition. The second part of the principle is, for me, is the democratic process in society at large. I feel that means being involved in politics, both on the national scale, the state level, and the city level. Being involved with the school boards, being involved in all the things that make our community and our country a wonderful place. And we do that by voting, by talking about candidates to the candidates, and about talking about candidates to each other as we make decisions to make this country a better place to live for all of us. The third part of the principle, the right of conscience. The democratic process requires trust in the development of each individual conscience, as we also develop our own conscience. A quote from Theodore Parker sums it up best for me. He said, "Democracy means not, I am as good as you are, but rather, you are as good as I am. My connection with the sacred is only as precious as my willingness to acknowledge the same connection in others." End quote. You are as good as I am. Praise. What a wonderful way to celebrate our fifth principle. Because you are as good as I am. Happy Talika.
Thank you, David. And now please join me in saying our covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. John Wesley, founder of Methodism, asked the famous question, "How is it with your soul?" He believed that our internal lives were really more important than our physical lives, and they gave meaning to them, to our physical lives, and should replace the everyday greeting, "How are you doing?" And then in 1873, Horatio Spafford wrote a song about this belief that reads like this: "When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul." In our tradition, in the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we often ask, "How have you been?" Meaning, since the last time I saw you, since the last time we experienced community together. When we ask familiar rhetorical questions like that, we often get familiar rhetorical answers like, "Fine, I've been well." And today, as I explore the questions of beloved community, I thought it might be useful, might shake up our thinking a little, to ask the unfamiliar to us question, "How is it with your soul?" At the end of our hour together, I hope you can respond, "It is well. It is well with my soul." For now, let us share a story for all ages. This is one I wrote a couple of years ago for Mother's Day. I told it then to celebrate the wisdom of mothers who taught their children to share. And today I want to emphasize the result of sharing that can help create a happy, successful, and yes, beloved community. Here's the story. There was once a wise mother who had 3 lovely children. She wanted them to learn to be kind, to be loving, and to share what they had with one another. She tried not to scold, but to teach by coaching the children to make their own decisions. Eldest son and first daughter often played together, shared their toys, even gave one another bites of their cookies once in a while. But second son had chosen a different path. "If I share my toys," he argued, "I won't have anything to play with myself. If I share my cookies, I'll go hungry." Mother had tried everything, reasoning, pleading, showing by example, but still second son said, "No way." And finally, Mother decided to try another tactic. "You're right," she said. "You're absolutely right. You don't have enough. You have to protect what is yours. Quickly, gather all your things and put everything on your own bed and pull the covers over them. Then stay in your room and stand guard. Don't let anyone in, not even me." Well, second son was delighted. Most of his toys were already in his room, and he got the rest and put them all under the covers. He went into the kitchen and asked for 3 cookies and then hid them under the covers as well. He made sure that everyone else was in the living room, and then he went into his bedroom and he shut the door. All day the family could hear him playing in his room, singing, laughing to himself, having a great time playing with his toys. But later that evening, when everyone else was getting ready for bed, his door opened, and second son stuck out his head and said, "I can't sleep." And Mother asked him why, and he said, "Well, my fire truck, which is on my bed with my other toys, keeps poking me with its ladder." "Oh, bad old fire truck," his mother said with great fervor. "If I were you, I'd get rid of it. If you asked him nicely, I bet your brother would take it off your hands for you." And second son, who was very crabby because he couldn't sleep, said to his mother, said to his brother, "Hey, do you want my fire truck?" And eldest son, who had always wanted to play with the truck, said, "Well, I'll take it off your hands." But he smiled to himself. Mother was just turning off the lights when the door opened again. "I still can't sleep," said second son. "My 3 cookies, which I haven't had time to eat, are in my bed, and I'm afraid I might turn over in my sleep and crush them. Then my bed will be full of cookie crumbs." "Oh, silly, crumbly cookies," said his mother, as if it were the cookies' fault. "If I were you, I'd get rid of them. Maybe first daughter wouldn't mind having crumbs in her bed." And first daughter knew what was going on, and she smiled to herself and said sweetly, "I don't turn over very much. I'll take the cookies for you." Well, the very next day was Saturday, and there was no school, and the children looked forward to playing all day after doing their chores. Second son went into his room and closed the door as he'd done the day before. But pretty soon his door opened, and he stuck his head out to say, "I've read all my books. I'm tired of them, and I'm bored." "Oh, what to do with old books," Mother mused. "Why don't you take them out of your bed and bring them in here and see if you could possibly, trade them with anyone else in the family?" Second son called his brother and sister and suggested they might want to trade some books. Eldest son and first daughter also brought out books they owned and had already read, and soon there was a happy exchange of stories and instructions. Everybody loved the solution that second son had proposed. After lunch, however, second son's door opened yet again, and he said, "All my games require someone else to play with. I can't play them alone. They're just stupid that way." Said Mother. "Eldest son and first daughter told me only this morning that they are tired of the games they've been playing and wish they had some new ones to play." "Fine with me," said second son. "Tell them they can have mine." And he put them outside his door and went back inside his room and closed the door once again. He still hadn't caught on to what Mother was trying to teach him. Just before dinner, his door opened again, and second son, looking very sad, said, "It's lonely in my room all by myself." Mother thought about this and suggested, "Maybe if you just opened your door, someone would wander by and come in." And that's what happened. Eldest son and first daughter came by, saw the open door, brought in some of their own toys, and the 3 siblings began to play, never paying attention to which game or toy belonged to which child. Nothing was ever said ever again about sharing because it wasn't necessary. The 2 brothers and their sister had become a community of 3. I sort of took that story out of my own childhood with my own brother and sister. Here's my first response. Whoop. Everybody okay? Here's my first response to the questions I asked. Here's the first thing I thought about when I thought about beloved community. Community is an opportunity to share many things. We share food at potlucks. Oh, I can't wait to have potlucks again. We share ideas during classes and discussions. We still participate in those online. We still have community in a virtual setting. Did you attend the discussion on the 8th principle this past Tuesday? It's the one that reads, "We covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions." Wow, that's a powerful promise to be able to make to the world. And think about how it takes the idea of a person belonging to a beloved community and extends it out into the world. Let me explain what I mean by that. Think about how you found the Unitarian Universalist church you attend, either in person or online. This is a story I've heard told over and over. This is a story I've lived myself. Somewhere, somehow, you heard about this faith that started out as two Christian churches, asked questions about traditional beliefs until they were both labeled heretics, and then in the last century joined forces to become one and decided that Christianity wasn't the only intelligent religion alive in the world, and invited anyone with any kind of belief to join without having to swear to a specific creed, only to look at some principles that we agreed upon. You probably said, whew, that's the kind of the way I see things. I like church, but I don't like being told I have to believe things that don't square up with my own life experiences. And then you took the leap and attended a service or two, and you said something like, I feel as if I've come home. I know you did, because like me, you're still here. You said, this is a community I can belong to because they encourage me to speak my own mind and say my own say. And the only thing they ask in return is that I keep an open mind when someone else speaks. And you joined a community of faith. We use the phrase beloved community to showcase the openness required, the compassion experienced, the loving kindness discovered in this way of seeking life's lessons together. I read an article in a magazine about Unitarians when I was 16. It said that Unitarians include their doubts as part of their beliefs. I was at the age of doubting, and I went out and checked it out. And I'm still here decades later. Some of you heard complaints that your way of being was not acceptable in another church, your agnosticism maybe, or your gayness, or your interest in Buddhism, your rejection of sin as a label for your worldview. Those things were perhaps discouraged or vilified in this other church you attended. Or maybe you hadn't been given a religious upbringing and wanted something more spiritual for your children. And you too discovered this beloved community. You saw it as a new way to look at life, learn to live a whole and giving life, seek answers to questions you've been afraid to ask elsewhere. Well, now I'm going to suggest that it can be more, that we can do better with the concept, and that we can learn to share our toys and our cookies and our love and compassion with the whole world. But first, my generosity report for this week. The board met last Sunday and prepared to make their pledges for this stewardship season we are entering next Sunday. As a way of supporting this church, keeping our doors open so someone else might come in and share with us, we asked every member and friend to share time, talents, and treasures, to volunteer to share their skills and their finances. Let me give you an example of that. In order that I might come to you on Facebook and YouTube every week, there are 5 or 6 people in the room with me this morning. Our pianist and lead singer, Misha and David, who you've already met, and David Bindi, who gave the Chalaka report, and 3 other people you seldom get to see on camera. Guy Thornton, who's our head technician and leads the recording efforts every week, Patrick Gutierrez, who runs the sound system, and Julie Hevelone, who operates the screen and camera. And occasionally they're joined by Thomas Earthman, our religious educator, who can fill in for any one of them if needed, and who often tells our story for all ages and occasionally preaches. Except for Thomas and Misha, who are staff, the rest are volunteers who come almost every weekend so that we can do the church during the lockdown. To make all this happen, we had to buy new equipment, microphones, cameras, a new soundboard. And where did it come from? From your donations, which were in addition to your annual pledges. That's what stewardship means. That's just one example of what goes on here. And that's why every year we renew our pledges. I'll have more to say about that next week, but until then, thank you, everyone, for your generosity and sharing. I have a reading titled Beloved Community Is. It was written by Alex Capitan and Reverend Michael Slack. Beloved community is when we say we, and we mean everyone. Beloved community is not homogeneous. It can't be. When commonality is presumed, when we make an assumption about who's present and whether people are like us or not, we're not practicing beloved community, because beloved community doesn't make those assumptions. It doesn't presume commonality or a sense of being homogeneous. Another thing that beloved community is not like-minded, because we're not called to be like-minded in spiritual community. We're asked to be like-hearted. And finally, beloved community is not devoid of conflict, and this one is also really hard. Beloved community is not easy. There's nothing easy about practicing beloved community. When we avoid conflict in order to get along, we're not practicing beloved community, because beloved community exists when we trust each other. We have the relationships, the strong enough relationships to actually disagree with each other, to be in conflict, even to risk hurting each other, and we can stay in relationship throughout those disagreements and conflicts and potential hurts. That is practicing beloved community. And now we're going to sing the hymn that I announced earlier, number 1017, Building a New Way.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, the world will die. Something to think about, isn't it? I'm going to do something different this morning. I'm going to share my second response to today's question. I have a reading from a colleague, the Reverend Victoria Safford, which I've already shared in part with you earlier this hour. I was going to include it as a second reading, but it's rather long. I also thought of reworking her ideas as my second response, because I agree with them so completely, and because the book and author she quotes in her reading are a favorite book and author of mine, with which I have also been inspired. So I'm just going to let her have this entire part of the service in which I usually give my second response. So here are Reverend Safford's words coming out of my mouth. Thank you, Victoria. The beloved community is not a goal or a destination, and it is not any kind of idealistic Christian utopian dream, but instead a way of being, spiritually, politically, economically, emotionally, intellectually. Beloved community is an attitude, an orientation of the heart. It's a disciplined understanding of your own relationship to other people, to everyone else on the planet, to every living thing. If you are religious, this is a religious discipline, and it goes by many names. If you are seeking spiritual wholeness, spiritual balance, it is a spiritual discipline. And if you are an ethical humanist, it is a deliberate moral stance. It is a daily practice, a spiritual politics that requires inclusivity, nonviolence, and the hard discipline of radical hospitality. And it requires love, agape love. Henri Nouwen, the treasured Catholic teacher, activist, and pastor, once described beloved community, quote, the place where the person you least want to live with always lives, unquote. On its surface, it seems to be a straightforward reminder not to expect perfection from the communities we join, and not to expect perfection from others. Indeed, it's a plea to stick with those troublesome others, forgive them, accept them, stay open to the whole of who they are, not just the caricatured sliver of them that makes it easy to write them off. Besides the obvious calls to commitment, conflict resolution, and hard work, there's also a hidden call to hope woven into Nouwen's words. To stay in community with difficult or offensive people, we have to hold on to the hope that they can change and grow. And we have to believe that their better selves exist and will eventually show up. We have to have faith that giving them the benefit of the doubt is worth it, that assuming their good intentions aren't foolish, and the same goes for ourselves. It's a tall order. This kind of hopefulness and generosity toward others is not easy. But here's the catch. Nouwen doesn't stop there. Right after that first sentence, he adds another, and here's the whole quote. Community is the place where the person you least want to live with always lives. And that person is always in your community somewhere. In the eyes of others, you might be that person. Ouch. Nouwen doesn't pull his punches. Just when we were starting to feel good about being the ones who are magnanimous with these annoying and offensive folks, Nouwen reminds us that we are actually among them. But don't get so caught up in this message of humility that you miss how Nouwen is also using this to call us to an even greater hopefulness. By adding us to the mix of the unwanted, he's pointing out that beloved community requires us to believe not only that others are worth our effort, but also that we will be worth the effort in the eyes of others. It's an insight that we must not miss this month. We human beings run away from community not just because others let us down, but also because we doubt that others won't step up when we let them down. Beloved community stays at arm's length, not just because it is hard to build, but also because we don't trust that it will be there for us. It's all one big reminder that the work of beloved community is bigger than we usually imagine. It's not just about building a better world. It's also about building up each other's faith. We are in a battle not just against the division between us, but also the doubt within us. Every Sunday we come together for a communion of names and milestones to talk about the stories that exist in this community, the stories of love and faith, of hope, of disappointment. Here are a few that live in our community today. Jude Olson had surgery on her hip on Thursday and has recovered from the surgery and entering into physical therapy. Please keep Jude in your mind as she comes back to us in health. Paul and Christine Chapman's fur companion of 19 years, Max, died this weekend, leaving a large dog-shaped hole in their lives. And we know how hard that is on all of us. And finally, this afternoon is the memorial service for Christina Luquise's father, who I told you last week died of COVID. And we have been keeping them in our thoughts as well. Instead of a silent meditation this morning, I would like to do a guided meditation titled One Love, written by the Reverend Hope Johnson. Please sit back, close your eyes, and think of the stories that live in this community. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together. Let us stay in this meditative mood as we hear a musical interlude from our pianist. Let us keep these stories in our minds and hearts until we meet again next week. So let me summarize where we've been so far. Beloved community is the place you discovered where you felt at home. Beloved community is not easy to maintain, but is worth maintaining as a religious discipline, a spiritual wholeness, balance and discipline, a deliberate moral stand, a daily practice, spiritual politics. It requires us to be better people, nonviolent people, people of compassion and love. And as if that isn't hard enough, now I'm going to suggest an additional commitment. I'm going to suggest it doesn't stop there. I'm going to insist that all that effort, all that discipline, all that personal growth needs to go further. I'm going to propose that we can't keep it to ourselves, that we have to learn to share it. We have to quit being smug, quit suggesting that we've found all the answers, that we've earned the title for ourselves, because it's not true. I know we mean well, but we don't do well. We have at least 4 other Unitarian Universalist churches in Tarrant County and several others in Denton and Dallas counties nearby. And we don't do very well in joining our separate communities, sharing our talents and efforts so that we might work on the larger social issues which we all say we support individually. Why don't we do that? Why don't we make that an effort to join forces as one of our first acts of opening our doors again? Why don't we try to stock all the food banks around us instead of just a few? Why don't we get larger attendances at important social justice meetings like the Gay Pride parades or the March for supporting big social issues like Black Lives Matter? Why don't we share with one another how we've solved issues of climate change and work to make them available to everyone? And then when we've become a larger presence in the world, why don't we join other faiths in this area? The other liberal Christian churches, the Jewish synagogues, the Buddhist and Islamic temples, and take the message of beloved community out into the wider community? Why don't we share what we've experienced, what we've discovered, and listen to how others respond to these social and life-giving needs? This isn't where beloved community begins. This is where it ends. It begins with you, with me, with each of us individually coming to fully understand what we've found, what we have. It begins with our asking questions of ourselves, questions like these. What was your first experience of beloved community? Can you share that? How do you make the distinction between community and beloved community? Can you tell us your story? It's said that beloved community isn't about the absence of conflict, but the willingness to stay at the table and work through it. What is your best strategy for staying at the table to keep you from running away or attacking when things get hard? Can you teach us how? How is racism and oppression standing in the way of creating beloved community? Can we explore this together? What one new commitment will you make this year to help build beloved community in your neighborhood, your state, your country, your world? Then, where do we go from here? And finally, how does it go with your soul? Please join me in singing our final hymn, number 325, Love Makes a Bridge.
Break not the circle of enabling love, where people grow forgiven and forgiving. Break not that circle, make it wider still, till it includes, embraces all the living. Come wonder at this love that comes to life, where words of freedom are with humor spoken, and people keep no score of wrong and guilt, but will that human bonds remain unbroken. Join then the movement of the love that frees, till people of whatever race or name salvation will truly be themselves stand on their feet, see eye to eye with laughter and elation.
I did it again, didn't I? I said the wrong hymn, and they sang the right one, and hallelujah, what a beloved community. Extinguish our chalice this morning. It is burned as a way to brighten the path, a very difficult path, to a better world for all, a beloved community. We need its flame. We need to hold it in our hearts as we say goodbye to one another until we next meet. And that way I can extinguish it here. My benediction this morning comes from the website of the UUA's 8th principle. Beloved community happens when people of diverse racial, ethnic, educational, class, gender, sexual orientation, backgrounds, identities come together in an interdependent relationship of love, mutual respect and care that seeks to realize justice within the community and in the broader world. So may it be in all our lives.